Welcome to Inside Prediction Markets, and today we have a bit of a unique episode, and we encourage everyone before you watch to quickly like, subscribe, and comment. Well, probably watch first, then comment, but like and subscribe first.
All right, let's get into it. This week, we're doing something a little unusual, a
Yep.
little different. Um, Maybe it doesn't even quite feel like a podcast so much as a YouTube episode because we are
Yeah.
going to have some visual aids. But we're talking about how to get a job at a prediction market.
Yep.
This is something we both get asked about a lot. I want to work for you guys, or I want to get into the industry. Um, what Here's my skill set, or here's what I was thinking. But honestly, prediction markets, brand new category. I think a lot of people don't even fully understand what they look like under the hood. Um, so we thought we'd talk through it, and in the second half, I think we're going to do some mock interview questions. I mean, really, this is supposed to be helpful and informative, perhaps at the expense of being entertaining. I think the first thing to even talk about would be how we both ended up working at prediction markets. So, absent a guest today, Chris, I'll put you in the OpticOdds hot seat. How did you end up working in Novig?
Sure. So, um, I would say early in September, maybe August, I knew prediction markets were going to really explode. I've been using kalshi quite a bit, and I was talking to you often. I was like, I want to join one, and I didn't even think to join Novig at a time, and I I was I briefly I knew someone at kalshi, and I reached out, and they recommended me, and we talked, but it didn't really go anywhere. And then a month or two later, I knew someone at Poly, and they wanted me to come work there. So it was more of like they were recruiting me. But if I had just reached out, I knew someone at Poly, it would have helped just as much. And after discussing with them, I was like, we were negotiating salary and whatnot. I was like, you know what, I wasn't really thrilled with the offer. Then I reached back out to Kalshi. There, once they heard Polymarket was interested, they got more interested.
That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? I don't wanna work for any of these guys. I wanna work for Henry and Jacob. Like, I like them a lot more, and I remember I actually looked through the messages the other day about it, and I was like, "What if we worked together?" And you're like, "Are you serious? Like, is this a real, like, ask?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I think once I said that, Jacob was calling me with an offer within 2 hours
Yeah.
because I already known him. So I think myself is a bad example because my resume was being one of, if not the biggest winner on Novig already, and having built a very successful operation, which you and Jacob both know. But I think the point though is reaching out to someone and asking is probably the best. I asked you to come work here. Not you did not ask me. It was like so it's not like you guys came out and recruited me and I ended up working here. And I would say is like for anyone else, just advice is like people have been DMing me on Twitter like, "Oh, I want to come work for Novig." I recommend all these people, and they should all get at least. Will they get the job? No, majority do not, but they'll get an interview.
Yeah.
And that's you just need an interview to give yourself a chance. And I think that's and we'll get into later on how you can do better and those kind of things. But that's the first thing. What about you? How did you get it? Because you've been here much longer than me.
Yeah, I posted the cover letter I wrote, to Novig over 3 years ago, which it's funny to go back and read because at the time, my achievements, I think, were pretty unusual in sports betting, and now a lot more people can hit those, targets.
It was funny looking. It's like you're flexing 100K win. It's like everyone and their mother has
I
100K
I
like
know, I
in
know.
a year.
But even 3 years ago, that was kind of a big
Yeah.
deal to make 100K betting on sports. Um, but, I I coming from an engineering background and having some experience in kind of semi-professional poker and sports betting, and then also knowing at the time that the industry leaders in America, which are FanDuel and DraftKings, just weren't really running sharp bookmaking operations at all. The only real sharp US-based operation was Circa, which is not digital. It's like very like by hand, right? And I'd used Bookmaker and Pinnacle, and I understood what like algorithmic sharp making looked like. And I thought, I could build this, and it's possible that if the industry trends in a direction that it's important to be a sharp bookmaker, that this would be super valuable software. And I feel like I'm uniquely capable of building it. And I wrote a letter to Novig saying all that. kind of briefly and got to an interview and then explained in more detail. And then another thing I did, which I advise a lot of people to do, is I I identified some companies I wanted to work at, and I went and found the venture capital firms that had led their recent rounds, and I reached out to the VCs first, because first of all, they can give you a lot of insight into where they think the industry is going, right? Like, I mean, I if I wanted to work in PM and I was starting from scratch, I would definitely reach out to Adi and Noah
Yeah.
and Ella, who are like running this 5CC, I think it's called,
Yep.
venture firm, because they're looking at all these brand new companies, right? It's like, what are you seeing? Where does it feel like things are going? And you can always get a hot intro into one of these companies. And if you don't, you haven't like screwed anything up. They're not going to call up every CEO they know and say, oh, I talked to Chris and he was okay, but he didn't impress me,
Yeah.
right? It's just like blank slate. So it's free to do that. Um, and yeah, we had this long interview, and I kind of explained my vision of what internal trading could look like and how I would build it. And I think they had a vague idea that that was something they could do, but it wasn't until they met me that they said, "Okay, we're definitely doing this, and you can kind of figure out how it's going to go." Um, so yeah, that was my experience. Both of us kind of came at it in a, I sort of made up my own role. I think you kind of made up your own role. That's not how everybody gets a job like this, but it's an important
I
possible.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest lesson you should have is yours is much better to learn from than mine for obvious reasons, but is sending a blanket application is okay, but you really need to go but, like, I would recommend if anyone's watching this and you DM myself or Henry, like, I would try to respond to every single person that's interested. There's not that many that respond that DM me, so you do that. If you don't want a job that's related to trading or you want something in operations or growth or engineering, find that person and DM them and say, "Hey, I'm really good. I can add to your department. Here's why. I've already applied." That's strong. That's showing insane initiative because, like, what what we don't know is this some random person that just wants a job and has applied to 50 different jobs and doesn't really care if they get Novig or like a Capital One job or whatever. I want if you're reaching out, it shows to me that, oh, you're very interested in us, and I want people that are interested in prediction markets or us in general.
And I think when you are in sharp sports betting and also sharp trading on PMs, how much of that job is like just seeing somebody who writes one good tweet and DMing them and being like, "Hey, I thought this was
Yeah,
insightful," and starting a conversation, and then maybe like down the line you guys partner and all of
yeah.
a sudden, like, that's a huge part of it. So it's not just the like, "Oh, we want you to try harder." I think everybody is looking for that person who can show the sort of agency that the job also requires, where it's, are you going to identify these market trends or these new products or things? Like, are you just in it all day long or not?
I mean, I'll shout out one of the guys I really like working here is Sammy at Novig, and what I've realized about him is just like if I DM him something and I say, "What do we do here?" He just gets it done. Like it doesn't matter what department it is, and like those are the kind of people that I want in a
Yeah.
aggressively growing space. And I think it's really good, just a go getter and just like
So let's ask it as a question. Let's say you're evaluating candidates for any role
Mhm.
at a prediction market. What what is one thing in particular that you're looking for from somebody who applies?
As a trader or prediction market.
I think let's say for you as a trader, looking for traders.
So reliability and attentiveness is probably the number one because a lot of these like a good way to describe it is our our bot and our system is right 95 to 99% of the time. You need to watch those 1%. So it's a lot of it is just like being available and like checking it. And then also quick thinking and initiative or having strong initiative is very, very important because like if there's a problem, I might not be able to respond and you might need a solution in literally 60 seconds or less, and I need you to, like, handle it before it's too gone before it's gone. So, if you can take initiative and do it on your own, that's huge for me. So, any way you can describe that, and that's usually just being really responsive, quick on your feet. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
What about you? What are you looking for?
We've described a lot of things, but one thing I always look for is how can you think through a complex series of events deterministically, right? So how much are you able to describe one pool ball hitting another pool ball into another and the cascade of things that could happen, right? So like if we suggested, um, what would happen if we introduced if we joined a venue that had high taker fees and negative maker fees, just some abstract thing. And it's one thing if you just sort of say like, oh, there'd be price discovery, but to actually sit and say, okay, negative maker fees. So you might start getting some wash trading, right?
Yeah.
Because of this. And or no, and to try and walk through like step by step by step, exactly what could manifest and even land on some unintuitive ideas as a result of doing it. That's kind of the thing I'm looking for. Because that to me tells me that you might find a problem that's going to evade
I
everybody else.
I think a good we were just talking about this in the office actually a year ago, or not, sorry, an hour ago. It's just like forecasting what's gonna happen is extremely difficult, and just being able to adapt to a new problem is very big. I mean, it's just I just think of myself personally, like, 3 years ago, I was just clicking buttons on OddsJam. Like, 2 years ago, I was doing all my stuff on legals or in-person kiosk betting, and, like, now I'm exclusively, like, trading on a prediction market. Like, the industry has changed so much, and I've had to adapt to a new problem every single time, so it's like, did I th have I thought about the problems that I'm thinking about today 2 years ago? No, but, like, I'm able to, like, think of new and same for you, like, did you imagine, like, we'd be in this world when you started this job, did you imagine we'd hit the links that we've had already?
Not like this,
Yeah.
not this quickly. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's I mean, the problem you're trying to solve right now is, like, a big one is, like, RFQ and stuff like that. You weren't thinking about that when you made your trading system. You were thinking way
No,
down the road.
nor like, oh, there's, a dozen new venues that are all coming
Yeah,
online all at once, and I have to figure out how every single one of them works
right.
and where the flow is going and what the leading and lagging indicators are. Like that was all kind of a static system
Yeah,
that is about to completely be upturned.
yeah.
And yeah,
No.
things move differently. All right. So we're gonna talk about a hypothetical org chart that you might see at a prediction market. And this is uh kind of reduced down to big broad categories in particular that I think the kind of people who listen to this show and watch this show
Yeah.
might find opportunities in. Obviously, there's a million roles, right? Every one of these places has a legal department because they have various
Yeah.
legal, they have HR and recruiters. There's a bunch of back office stuff you see at every business. Um, but we wanted to walk through kind of what you might think of as being specific to prediction markets and also like very big, robust departments and places where people who are really into this stuff might fit in. Um, and so I'd start with as just a big general category, operations. And I threw in there, you know, finance, risk, fraud, customer experience, market operations. So for us, operations is both like how the business runs, down to like payroll, modeling revenue. You're thinking about, growing the business, hiring, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but then there's the day-to-day of the exchange itself, right? So you need to monitor for wash trading, for spoofing, for multi-accounting, for all these kind of behaviors that in many cases are illegal, um, depending on the regulatory structure you're in, or if they're not, they might be against terms of service, or they might be just creating negative customer experience. And along with that, market operations, this is things like creating events, creating the markets with them, grading them, making sure they were graded correctly, making sure nobody was past posted, right?
Yeah.
This is very customer service adjacent. And then of course there's directly customer service. Um, a a lot of these roles are entry level ish, or there may be a good step up if you had a customer service job somewhere else and you want to get into the industry, getting into managing market dynamics at a prediction market. There there's a lot of headcount needed around that. It's a very manual job. It requires not a lot of technical knowledge, but a lot of ball knowledge, right? A deep understanding of house rules and weird edge cases. And yeah, I think this is a good entry point for a lot of people into the business.
I think Just having worked here for a couple months now, I think the biggest thing is I've talked to every single person, like a person that is in each department here. And the nice thing is I can ask them a wide range of questions, and most of the time, they don't have an answer right off the bat, but they get me an answer in, like, 15, 20. They know how to, and, like, that's the biggest thing is just, like, someone that's a go-getter, someone that can solve a wide range of problems. Because we don't even the problems that you're describing now, there's gonna be way more and different problems in 3 months from now, let alone, 3 years from now. So you have to it's not just like, "Oh, you're doing the same thing over and over again." It's rapidly expanding, and being able to handle and think on your feet is big here.
Yeah. We talk about, like, being able to just define your own role and kind of convince a company to make a
Yeah.
position for you. If you've been using prediction markets for the last year plus, and you've identified a bunch of flaws or common issues, and you have brainstormed what real solutions would look like, a cover letter or a proposal to somebody saying, "Look, you and everybody else has problems 1, 2, and 3, and I could manage a solution where we would monitor for this and we would do that and blah, blah, blah." Like, that's the kind of thing that maybe nobody has in mind, and they circulate the email and they say, "I think this is a good idea. Let's talk to this person and see, like, if this makes sense." Like, that could totally happen. And yeah, we'll get into some other people who I think are kinda in that category. I don't know, we won't dox any of our employees, but, we can talk about people that we think have done things like that as we go. But next is growth. So, growth, obviously, marketing is the big thing here, and that's paid marketing, it's social media, um, there's in-app marketing. What are you highlighting at the top of the app every day? A lot of this is, we call this like app programming. It's kind of related to market operations, right? Like, what is the experience of using the app every day? Are there featured parlays? Are there, promos, odds boosts, whatever? Like, where do we put the Masters and the NBA finals, et cetera, et cetera? Um, and analytics, obviously, like kind of data science, running SQL queries all day and seeing what's going on, and business development. Um, that varies. I think that's a lot bigger at some of the other exchanges where they have to cover a lot more markets, and so bringing in market makers is a little more complex. The rebate structures are more complex, but I think everything is kind of trending this way, right? Of like you have all these API participants, and they all have different needs, and fine tuning parameters around rebates and delays and whatnot can create different behavior. Like people who have strong understanding of that and can model different possible outputs and put together plans and revenue models.
I would say anything in the purple and green category there is more of, like, good vibes and, like, a jack of all trades, like, you can do a lot of things in your role. The engineering and trading, not so much. Like, it's kinda like, with engineering, I feel like it's more like, how good technically are you?
Yeah.
It's like, you can't vibes your way into an engineering, and if you're applying to here and you don't know, like, what a hash map like, get out of here. Like, there's some basic stuff here that, like
I also think it's worth noting, certainly at Novig, I'm sure everywhere else this is true. Like, because of AI, the presumed level of tech savviness has skyrocketed for every non-technical department, right? Like if you're coming in and you're talking about how you could assist with relationships with other market makers and development of the business that way, you really need to have some ability to vibe code tools that are needed to do your job, or to solve like basic like SQL or Python data queries that you need done, right? If you're old school and you're like, "Oh, I need somebody to help me with that," it's just not going to happen
and I
anymore.
think what's crazy is the difference in level of how to use, like, AI is insane. Like, someone with not a technical background, they can vibe code some cool stuff and do some great things, but you give a solid engineer AI, and they're, like, 20xing what they were 5 years ago. It is
Yeah.
it is nuts, and I think people, like, might be discouraged, like, "Oh, I see people doing all these great things." It's like, yeah, because they have the tech skill that you don't. You can still do some good things, but they're doing, like it just makes the gap between technical ability and non-technical ability even wider. It's quite crazy.
Yeah. I put under engineering just two categories, was engineers, at Novig, we don't really have titles attached to engineers. They're just all software engineers working on various things. But I did highlight dev relations, which is, engineers that are assisting those third-party traders, because I think this is a department that is understaffed at every single prediction market. I think it's it is such an avenue of growth, and it is only going to expand more and more exponentially as the products themselves expand and as the AI tools expand. And entire teams of people who are interfacing with the API market participants are going to become really important. And again, this is a great area. You know, it's good to be good at everything. If if you feel like you have the technical skills to maybe, if you're lucky and you grind hard, get the dream job you're looking for, but you also have a lot of experience trading prediction markets, to come in and say, I would be an ideal dev experience engineer, like combining that knowledge of the domain with the engineering experience, all of a sudden you can put together a really attractive package for what you could do here. I don't have his permission to say his name, but our dev relations specialist, everybody loves, and it is the kind of thing where
How he's doing it by himself is pretty
I
impressive.
know, well, you probably need help pretty soon.
Yeah.
I don't know that that was necessarily a hire we were about to make until we met him, and then we said, well, we're going to hire him. Of course. He's great.
Which is crazy to think, because it's like, I don't know what we would be doing if we didn't
I
have
know.
and it's like we weren't even thinking about hiring it until we talked to he showed up one day, I was like, "We needed this role?" And then now I'm like, "Damn, we needed this role."
Jacob talks about every new hire within like 30 days. You want to feel like, oh man, what were we doing without this person? That's, and maybe, certainly for like a seed stage company, it needs to feel that way.
Yeah.
Eventually, not everybody is an emergency hire, unless that means you're probably not hiring fast enough. And then finally, what we actually know anything about, the trading, which should point out, at regulated prediction markets, trading usually happens under its own entity. There's a firewall between the trading business and the regulated
Which will be
business.
happening very soon.
Yeah, right. We're gonna spin off a separate
Yeah.
company. But I think when people say they want to work at PMs, they often mean the trading businesses that power them. I wrote Originators because that's who would do this. So these are usually data scientists or quants.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we should talk first. Let's start the easy one, engineers.
Yeah.
That's you need technical skills, like, similar to the engineering on the exchange side. There's some basic things, like, if you don't know it, you can't, like, vibe your way out of it, like, you're not get you're if you don't have the chops, you're not getting the job, but more so it also is we are targeting guys and the engineers that we've hired that have, like, they understand trading at some level. It's funny, both engineers you have little to no sports experience.
Of the two newest.
Yeah, you know, it's like
Yeah.
but, like, doesn't matter. They've done excellent work already building the system out because, like, they understand trading, they understand what they mean, and, like, when I explain something to them about what we need, they're like, "Oh, got it," instantly, and they
Crypto guys are pretty good.
yeah, very good, very good. So then we'll go with originators. So, b I would say a lot of people think they're originators, and then they're not actually like,
Yeah.
they're not actually that good. I mean, think about who you're competing against. You're competing against, like, like, the big dogs. Everyone knows, like, Rufus is, a big dog in the space, like, the guys that are betting, like, millions on Sunday for NFL, like, guys that are betting after lineups are on NBA, like, these are the types of guys out there. So, if you think you can data science some model and be like, "Oh, I, like, hit an internship for a sports team. I'm gonna be an originator for you guys." Probably not. Like, you have to really have already won at betting at a high level to really make a difference here, or have a real plan of attack to, like, build out a whole new model there. So I would say that if you think you might be one, you're probably not one. Don't mean to bash anyone.
The other thing about originators, and again, probably like quants,
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who truly win and make good
Yeah.
numbers, market beating numbers, but the process is ad hoc, directional,
Yes.
hard to explain, hard to institutionalize and scale. Um, and so if you don't come in with a plan for that, I can know you're the sharpest guy I've ever worked with. I can know that any play you send me is going to crush and I should get down as much as I want on it. But if you can't actually explain like how we're going to put in processes that reflect the way you think, and how I can onboard a trader to help you with this, or assign a machine learning engineer to help you strengthen it, it's hard for me to see how I can get exponential value out of you as a hire,
Yeah.
right? Like, maybe if I had a team of 200 people, I just want all the talent I can get, throw them all in a room. But if I'm, at that under 50 people stage, somebody who wins across a broad variety of whatever happens to be soft, I just kind of feel like the most I'm going to get is you trade with my money and we come up with some deal to split it.
Yeah.
And like, I can't think that way. I'm trying to build
Yeah.
a $50
Right.
billion business. Right. And that is not exponential. That's
Yeah.
linear. So there's a lot of guys like that who, super talented, um, belong in the industry, will make a lot of money. But if they wanted to come work for me and probably some of our competitors, they need to be able to explain how what they do is going to happen at scale and how they're going to help everybody get there. If they're expecting a team is going to do that for them, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think something to understand is, like, as a market maker, you actually, I would argue good but not great numbers on 100% of markets available is better than great numbers on 5% of markets, because, yeah, you can crush on those, but you're getting flow from everywhere. If you have better than market numbers, but someone out there could beat you on everything, this is actually quite good because you can shade the market. You can top down does not work anymore because you're better than it. So that's what makes the originating very difficult, and why your point was good there. Traders is the fun stuff there. Um, we're
What is a trader exactly?
yeah, look, you've built a great system,
Thank
and,
you.
but your system is not optimized for everything, and there's, like, a good example I would give is, what size do you display on a random NBA game? Okay, do you go 4% vig on each side, 5% vig on each side, 10K a post, 20K a post, 5K a post? Does that game change between if the Knicks are playing, the Spurs and it's a primetime game on a weekend, or does it's, the Grizzlies versus the Wizards on a Tuesday night with 6 other games? Like, think about it. There's a lot of things that, like, the system is good, but it needs to be very nuanced, and a trader needs to go in there and put the dials correctly.
And how would you interpret market activity in
Right,
all those
right,
cases,
and that
right? Yeah.
and another thing is, like, when there's actual flow coming in, okay, you're seeing bets or trades come in on these games. How do you move off of these numbers? Is it a fake? Is it not a fake? Like, is this a sharp play? Is et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you need to do. The system is good 95% of the time, but it's an extra 5% that really can make a big difference is what we're monitoring. And I think what makes being a trader is quite difficult is oftentimes I'm sitting there watching the screen, nothing's going on, and for an hour, I'm not doing anything, and then bam, something happens, and if I didn't react in that 1 minute, it was like I didn't even work that night. So if, like, you missed it, oh, you missed 1 minute of work, but that was the whole reason that you were watching the screen for the entire night, and it's like, you've gotta a lot of it is just, like, really, really quick thinking, ability to make decisions with no fear, and you can't bounce side, you can't, like, analyze it for 20 minutes. You've gotta make a decision right then and there and get on with it. So, and I would say another good example of being a trader is, like, can you, like, make a fair on a game and get it closely, like, on a random event, like, how far could you throw a rock? Could you guess that, like, right off the bat in, like, 2 minutes? Pick a random person on the street. Could you That's, like, a good question, in my opinion, as to, like, would you be a good trader or not? Because you need to really quick, and, an almost good answer is better than a perfect
And
answer.
how much would you book on your first trade on that?
Right,
How
right,
far would you move the line off of it? Yeah, right.
right, right. These are
'Cause it turns out a lot of the first time you ever hang a line you just made up, you're like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." And then you watch and like, no, it's like, "Oh, I guess nobody really cares," right?
yeah,
Like, or one person clicks and you're like, "Okay." Like you realize it's not sometimes you just put lines up and see what happens. And we talked about, becoming even more and more reliant on, like, put any line up, don't even care about what it is, and just watch flow happen and treat it all like whatever you treat high level flow. Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of times where, like, I've seen an order come up and I'm, like, watching the screen, I'm like, "Oh, let me check what penny is. Again, did it move in the last 2 minutes?" And then by the time I look back at someone else has gotten it, I'm like, "Damn it, if I didn't act like, you gotta act fast in this
Yeah.
business, so.
Yeah. Have some instincts around all these things. Okay. I think we're gonna switch over to doing kind of mock interview
Yeah, yeah,
questions.
yeah.
Okay. So Chris, this is your
Ye
first question.
Yes.
This is a question rooted in math and perhaps rooted in algorithms. And it is a betting question. So this is there is a right answer here, but we're gonna work through it step by step.
Yep.
And solve whatever pieces of it you can. Let me know what you're thinking as you go through each step. If you get stuck, and give some clues or kind of simplify the problem. The point is not to stump you, it's just kind of see how your mind works on stuff. So imagine you are offered a game. In this game, you're allowed to roll a dice or a die up to 3 times. After each roll, you can either accept $1 for each pip on the die, or you can roll again. So in this instance, if you rolled a 1, you could accept $1 and the game is over. Or you could say, I'm going to roll again. If you roll a 4, you could accept $4 and the game is over. Or you roll again. On your third roll, you have to accept the value. There's no more rolls after that. That's your final roll. Given this game, what is the optimal strategy?
First thing I was thinking right off the bat is, let's take the first roll, for example. If it's a 1, 2, or 3, you immediately know you're gonna re-roll because just thinking about it, what's the EV of one die roll? The average is 3.5, right? Half the time it's 1, 2, or
Let's
3.
write that down.
Yeah.
So EV of one dice roll equals 3.5, because that is a very important fact.
And then if the first roll is a 6, we obviously don't need to re-roll again. So the question now really becomes is, this first roll, do we take a 5 or do we re-roll, or do we take a 4 or do we re-roll? Let's put a pin in that for now. Let's go to the second. Let's say you've rolled a 1, 2, or 3 and you're on the second roll.
Okay.
The second roll becomes really, really easy because you only have one more remaining roll after this. If we have below the EV, so 1, 2, or 3, we're obviously re-rolling. If we have a 4, 5, or 6, we want to take it.
So you're saying, you're saying because the EV of this, and let's make red UV color, is 3.5. Our strategy here is if we're greater than 3.5, we can exit.
Yep.
And if we're less than 3.5, we continue to the next dice. Is that right?
Exactly.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So basically the only thing we need to know now is on the first roll, do we take a 5 or do we take a 4? Basically so this is where it gets a little tricky. So
I agree.
so how I would think about this is, I need to figure out what the EV of both of these are. And that's
So in other words, we know the EV of having one roll. The EV of having 2 rolls is what? That's
so
what we want.
right. So we could think about this logically. Okay, we know on the second roll, okay, if we get a 1, 2, or 50% of the time, we're taking the 4, 5, or 6. So 50% of the time, we are getting a 4, 5, or 6. So the average would be 5.
You're saying 50% of the time we roll greater than 3.5.
Yep.
In which case, on average, it's
5.
So 50% of our outcomes are on average of 5.
Yep.
That sounds right. Enough. I'm going to lose a little bit of ability right here, but that's 0.5 times 5 plus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other half of the time, we roll a 1, 2, or 3, of which case we know we're going to re-roll and the EV is 3.5. So half of 3.5, there we go.
Yeah. Really, really falling apart here.
Yeah.
But yep. So it's half of 5 plus half of 3.5, which is really half of 8.5. So 4.25. And for those who lost track, what we're saying is the EV of having 2 dice rolls is 4.25.
And because the EV is 4.25, that means if we get a 4, we actually want to re-roll, and if we get a 5, we want to take the 5. So that means our
On
on
the
the first
first
on the
roll.
fir so the first roll, as expected, 1, 2, or 3 we're re-rolling, 4 we're re-rolling, and a 5 or a 6 we're taking. On the second roll, 1, 2, 3 we're obviously re-rolling, and a 4, 5, or 6 we're taking.
Right. So here it's 5 or more. Here it's 4 or more. We exit, and then we just take the last one. And do you think we could just keep applying this idea where and we don't have to do it, but if we know that the EV of 2 is 4.25 and that we're only taking a 5 or a 6 here, I guess we could do it, right?
Yeah.
You want to do EV of all three?
Sure.
Yeah. EV of 3 is, you want to say it?
Oh, boy. I gotta think of I maybe I should know it instantly, but it's like, uh, what is it? So on the re-rolls, it's 4.25, so 66% of the time it's 4.25 plus 5 plus 1/3 of, 5.5.
That's 1/3. That is exactly right. I'm not going to do the arithmetic, but yes, that is exactly what the EV of 3 is. And so you could see how you would solve
Yeah.
this recursively, right? You could do 100 rolls. Probably pretty quickly gets to you only take 6s, right?
I would imagine,
If
yeah.
we're already at like only 5 or 6, I think it's 4, maybe 4 or 5. That's another you could ask somebody to estimate. That's great. Yeah, very good. I did a lot of guiding, but we want to
Yeah.
make sure that we
Yeah.
you were cruising through it. Um, Beautiful. You want to do one for me?
Sure.
Now, I think yours is a little less whiteboardy. My handwriting is terrible, so maybe we put the whiteboard away for this. Or if you want it, yeah.
No. We don't need the whiteboard for this one. So here's my so y I think this might be just different preferences. You like this because this is a clear answer. Like, if I say to you, you re-roll on a 5 in the first one, I'm just objectively wrong. There's no arguing here. I like to ask interview questions where, like, I'm listening to your process. I wanna see what you're thinking about. Do I think you're smart or not is basically the more question. So I don't know if you're smart or not. So let's see the question. Imagine you're running a bot on an exchange for specifically MBA. You have a lot of data there. You've been running it for 3 months quite successfully. You have a positive ROI. But what you've been doing right now is you've been running, -110 on both sides, so about a 5% hold you'd hope if your fares were optimal and you're doing it, live only. And you've been displaying 10K size on both, and you've been only doing breaks for argument's sake. You're not worried about court headers or anything like that. So really, the only times you're getting picked off is when your fares are wrong based on the live state and some sharp hits you. So you have this data. What are some questions you want to know if you should be going even tighter to pick up potentially more flow, even wider to get increase your ROI? You're playing 10K size, maybe you should decrease or increase size. What are some questions you would ask about the data that you have?
Those sound like good starter questions. Well, my first thought would be if I'm doing 10K -110 both sides, how often am I top of book? How many other market makers would I estimate there are? How many people share that tick with me? Um, am I if there's a lot of liquidity at that tick, am I at the front of queue or am I deep in queue? Right? Could I be winning on speed, getting ahead of everybody? How based on my queue position, how often is enough trading activity happening to get to me? Right? Is it the kind of thing where on less popular games, I'm not getting filled. It's only on popular games. Or is it the kind of thing I'm only getting filled when there's a clear directionally right side that I'd be concerned about? Uh, da, 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 da.
See, these are all great questions for like this is a trader interview for myself. Like these are just part of things that you as a trader would work with, you as the designer of the system. It's like, look, your system's good, but we're getting screwed on these spots here, we're getting screwed on these spots there, and I need you to rationalize through it all. So now I'm gonna get very specific. You've done a terrible job of tracking. You as like the
Sure.
hypothetical,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately. And what you've realized, and you don't know anything about like how often the queue. These are all great questions, and you should, but for the sake of the argument, you haven't. What you've noticed is 50% of the time, 50% of your fills come from 1K size or less quantity. 50% goes from the 1K to the maximum 10K. On the 50% of the fills that are below 1K, you're holding 4%. So just a little bit of adverse selection there. On the 50% of fills that are above 1K, you have 0% hold. You're at exactly break even. With that information and knowing nothing else, should you decrease the size from 10K to down to whatever, increase it? Should you decrease or increase the hold?
Yeah. So from an EV perspective, I'm indifferent between staying where I am or sizing down, because it won't affect my performance. From an expected bankroll growth perspective, I would prefer to size down because I'm introducing more risk without higher return. But then from a very practical perspective, the exchange has an incentive to host more size. And so before scaling down, I would probably realistically reach out to the exchange, say, hey, I've been doing 10K sides. I'm not making money past 1K. So I'm planning to scale down. But if this is valuable to you for some kind of rebate or incentive, I would be happy to keep doing the size. And I would see if there's an opportunity there.
Perfect answer.
Yeah, always think about like what that relationship could be.
Perfect answer. So now, the next question that I would ask is, okay, so the key point there is everyone should get that you go down to 1K in an optimal world, because why would you increase variance for no benefit? That's illogical. Now, what if I told you that you are holding 5% on the below 1K and -1% above the 1K? Does that change your answer at all?
I mean, it becomes even more imperative to go down to 1K because I'm minus EV. I still would entertain the idea of talking to the venue and seeing if there's any kind of rebate. The only other thing I would think about is there signal that I could extract from that flow that I could then trade it somewhere
Yeah,
else, right? And then if I determine there was, right, like, oh, I'm losing, but these certain like trade size a certain way, I can actually trade them somewhere else and turn a profit. What is the minimum amount of size I have to offer to continue to consume that
yeah.
signal? And that would be my next move.
So then the last question I would ask for this, it would be, it's similar to a question that you asked earlier, which is like, how much of the flow are we getting? Well, how does your answer change if we are in a fine tick, like a Novig exchange environment, or a wide tick, like a polymarket or a kalshi environment? And you can kind of rationalize there. In both environments, there's also a lot of other market makers. So you can rationalize to yourself that, okay, in the bigger ticks, there might be a lot more, you're in the waiting in the queue, et cetera, and we'll go back to the again, it's break even above 1K fills, and it's 4% hold on below 1K fills.
You're saying how does my thinking
Yeah,
change just
yeah.
based on tick width?
So, no, let's answer that it's a very fine tick right
Okay.
now.
Um, with the fine tick, you have a lot more flexibility to move around based on price, right? So you might have some room to uh move some or all of your size to a wider tick and still consume flow. So you could experiment with doing that. As you get to wider ticks, you're more forced into these specific buckets. Where it's interesting, like even like what does a 10K fill mean, right? Because well, how much liquidity had to get filled ahead of you before we even got to you. But you certainly the more it becomes less realistic to consider like, oh, why don't I just widen out a tiny, fraction of a percent, right? That space doesn't exist. So you're definitely, if you say, oh, the first X dollars at this tick at each stoppage is plus EV fills, and then it starts becoming minus EV fills, it just becomes a matter of speed.
Yeah,
And perhaps some kind of can I can I get some size out earlier that is a little sticky, right? And I think this is the game people play with ultra wide tick venues, right? It's leaving those pregame orders up into the first 2 minutes of in play, right? It's kind of guessing in the 2 minute warning that I think they're just going to take knees. Let's treat it like
yeah,
halftime right now,
yeah,
right? Like that race. And am I able to automate that process in a way that I feel safe
yeah,
about?
and you've kind of already hinted at it. The last thing I guess we're gonna ask, could wrap this up, would be, you are the fastest person, you've optimized speed. What do you do? And then you would hope that the answer here would be you actually want to increase your quantity, even though you break even, because yes, you leave yourself vulnerable to getting picked off and increasing variance, but because if you're the first person, you can block everyone else, all the other market makers, and hog that queue tick, which is very, very valuable. So then you could ideally get all the recreational flow.
Yes, speed is killer. It depends on the delay too, right? We haven't
Right,
even talked
right.
about delays. We're kind of assuming a zero delay
Yeah.
environment. Um, but in a zero speed bump environment, there even being the antagonist that fast feeds and clears the book, right? You might even be willing to eat a small loss to pick off stale standing liquidity to just intimidate people out of the book. Again, now we also get into regulatory issues, right? Like if you actually think something is losing 0.5%, but intimidates market makers, is that truly a valid trade that you're supposed to be making?
That's a good
And
question.
it's now you need a lawyer. We didn't even have legal on it,
Yeah.
but you would want to follow up with a lawyer because I don't know that you necessarily want that to be the stated
Right.
purpose of a trade. Um, I think some people are working on strictly directionally correct models for these purposes. Some people are running a kind of parallel strategy. And then you get into like, if I have two sub accounts and well, first of all, what if I have one account that is running two strategies and it's accidentally wash trading because I'm faster to directionally clear out my own standing liquidity than I am to cancel out liquidity, right? How do I explain that 30% of my volume is wash trading? Like that's a little hairy. So you do get down into the weeds of terms when you start
And
uh
I would say if any candidate started talking about that, they'd get this.
they're probably getting an offer for an entry level trade.
I was not even thinking about these questions. Like I was just trying to figure out, like most of my questions that I'm asking a trader is basically how fast can you think and how aggressive
Yeah.
are you? And if you're fast and aggressive, I'm gonna hire you.
How much vig is there in this quote? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Those were fun. Those were good. Yeah, I think we're in the process of bringing people on for our trading operation. Novig's always hiring. I think everybody's hiring. I mean, it it's such a greenfields thing. Like even people don't even really know what these products are going to be, right? Like everybody's just building brand new prediction market products every day. So couldn't be a more exciting, more dynamic time to get into something. And like Chris said, if you're interested in any of this, reach out. We love talking about it. Love to hear from you.
Yep.
All right, we'll wrap it up.
Thanks guys for watching. If you enjoy, please like, subscribe, and now comment your thoughts.
Rate 5 stars on your podcast app too. That's important.